Everyone thought I was weak because I rarely spoke. My husband called me the quiet one, and his family treated me like I didn't belong. They laughed in front of me, made decisions without me, and assumed I knew nothing. What they didn't know was that silence doesn't mean blindness. I saw every lie, every secret, and every betrayal. I just waited until the right moment to speak. And when I finally did, their entire world fell apart. My name is Emily, and for 7 years I was the kind of wife people forgot was in the room. I wasn't shy. I simply believed that not every battle deserved my voice. Growing up, my mother always said, "The loudest person isn't always the strongest. Sometimes the strongest person is the one who listens." I carried those words into my marriage. When I met Daniel, he wasn't rich. He was funny, ambitious, and incredibly charming. He noticed the little things about me. He remembered my favorite flowers, my coffee order, and the books I loved. He made me believe I had found my best friend. Our first 2 years together were beautiful. Then everything changed. Daniel's business finally became successful. Money arrived faster than we ever imagined. With the money came something else. His parents, his younger sister, Chloe, and relatives I had never even met before. Suddenly, our quiet little home became a place where everyone had an opinion. His mother criticized my cooking. His father questioned every decision I made. His sister walked into our house without knocking, borrowed my clothes without asking, and acted as if she owned the place. Daniel never defended me. Instead, he would laugh. "Emily, don't take everything so seriously." Or, "They're just joking." At first, I believed him. I kept telling myself families needed time. But time only made things worse. One Sunday, we hosted dinner for everyone. I spent nearly 6 hours preparing the meal: roasted chicken, fresh vegetables, homemade bread, chocolate cake. As everyone sat around the table, I quietly served each plate. No one thanked me, not one person. Instead, Daniel's mother took one bite and frowned. "Chicken is dry." His sister nodded dramatically. "Honestly, had better food at a gas station." Everyone laughed, even Daniel. I looked down at my own untouched plate. For a second, I wanted to cry. Instead, I smiled. "I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it." His mother leaned back in her chair. "You apologize too much." "I was only trying." "You were trying," she interrupted. "But trying isn't enough." Daniel reached across the table, not to comfort me, to grab another bread roll. He didn't even look at me. That was the night I realized I was completely alone. The following morning, I woke up early to clean the kitchen. As I walked past Daniel's office, I heard voices. His parents, they were discussing money. "I think Emily should sign the property over," his father said. "It'll make taxes easier." His mother laughed. "She'll sign anything Daniel puts in front of her." They all laughed together. I stood frozen in the hallway. Property? What property? The house was in both our names. Before we got married, my grandmother had left me a large piece of land outside the city. I had never planned to sell it. It wasn't worth millions, but it carried memories. My grandmother planted every tree herself. She used to tell me, "Land stays loyal when people don't." Only Daniel knew how much that place meant to me. So why were they talking about it? I quietly walked away before anyone noticed me. That evening, Daniel came home carrying flowers, red roses, my favorite, years ago. He had forgotten that my favorite flowers had changed to white lilies after my grandmother passed away. "Been working hard," he said with a smile. "I thought you deserved these." I thanked him anyway. Then he sat beside me on the couch. "Need your help with something." There it was, not "How was your day?" Not "Are you okay?" Just business. He pulled a folder from his briefcase. A lawyer prepared some paperwork. I slowly opened it. There it was, a transfer agreement, my grandmother's land. He wanted ownership moved to his company. "It's only temporary," Daniel explained. "It'll help us secure investors." I looked into his eyes. Years ago, I could always tell when he was lying. Now, he had become very good at it. "Can I think about it?" I asked softly. His smile disappeared. "Why? It's a big decision. We're married." "I know. So why do you need time?" "Because something didn't feel right," but I didn't say that. Instead, I smiled. "I just want to read everything carefully." He sighed dramatically. "I knew your anxiety would become a problem." Anxiety, that was his favorite word whenever I questioned him, if I disagreed. I was anxious if I asked questions. I was overthinking if I cried. I was emotional. Eventually, I stopped explaining myself. That night, after Daniel fell asleep, I picked up the folder again. Every page looked normal, until I reached the last page. A tiny paragraph buried near the bottom. If signed, ownership wouldn't return to me, ever. It was permanent. My hands began to shake. He hadn't just asked me to help. He had tried to trick me into giving away the last thing my grandmother ever left me. I quietly placed the papers back exactly where I found them. Then I looked over at my sleeping husband, for the first time in 7 years. I didn't recognize the man lying beside me. The next morning, I acted exactly the same. I made breakfast, packed his lunch, kissed him goodbye before work. He smiled, convinced I suspected nothing. As soon as his car disappeared down the street, I locked the front door, picked up my phone, and called someone I hadn't spoken to in almost 5 years. Familiar voice answered. James. There was a pause. Emily. Everything okay? I looked down at the unsigned documents resting on the kitchen table. Then I whispered the words that would change everything. I think my husband is trying to steal my inheritance. Silence filled the line. Finally, James spoke. If that's true, don't sign anything. Won't. Emily? Yes, you need to know something. My heart began pounding. What is it? James took a slow breath before answering. Daniel has been hiding something from you for a very long time. I tightened my grip on the phone. What do you mean? His next sentence made my blood run cold. Been trying to find a way to tell you, but I never imagined it would come to this. Been trying to find a way to tell you, but I never imagined it would come to this. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The only sound in my kitchen was the ticking of the clock above the stove. What are you talking about? I whispered. James hesitated. I didn't want to interfere in your marriage. I kept hoping Daniel would do the right thing. But if he's trying to take your grandmother's land, you deserve to know. I sank into a chair. Know what? Can we meet in person? Tell me now. Another long silence. Then he spoke. Daniel's company isn't doing as well as everyone thinks. I frowned. That doesn't make any sense. It looks successful from the outside. Expensive cars, business trips, designer suits, but appearances can be bought. My stomach tightened. Seen financial records, Emily. How? I work for the investment firm that's been reviewing his company. Everything inside me went still. He doesn't know you're involved. No, you're certain. I wish I wasn't. James explained that Daniel's business had expanded too quickly. To keep up with the image of success, he'd borrowed money from private investors and banks. When profits didn't grow as expected, he borrowed even more to cover the earlier debts. It was a dangerous cycle. Company needs collateral, James said quietly, and my land would be valuable enough to convince new investors. I closed my eyes, so none of this was about building our future. I'm afraid not. Tears threatened to spill, but I blinked them away. Thank you for telling me. Careful, Emily. I will. Don't let Daniel know we spoke. After we ended the call, I sat in silence for nearly an hour. I wasn't just hurt. I was embarrassed. How had I missed this? Then I remembered something my grandmother once told me. When someone spends all their energy making life look perfect, look behind the curtain. I had spent years looking at the curtain, never what was behind it. That afternoon, Daniel came home unusually early. He walked into the kitchen carrying shopping bags. I thought we'd have a nice dinner tonight. He smiled the same smile that had once made my heart race. Now it felt rehearsed. I'd like that, I replied. As we cooked together, he laughed more than usual. He complimented my hair. He asked about my day. He even offered to wash the dishes. 7 years of marriage had taught me something. Daniel was never this kind without wanting something. Sure enough, after dinner, he placed the folder on the table again. So, he smiled. Have you thought about it? I folded my hands. I have. And I'd like my own lawyer to review everything first. His smile vanished. You don't trust me? I trust legal advice. He leaned back in his chair. Emily, why are you making this difficult? I'm not. Do you know how much pressure I'm under? I imagine it's a lot. If you loved me, you'd help. There it was, not love, manipulation. I looked at the man I'd married and realized he no longer asked for things. He made people feel guilty until they gave in. I'm sorry, I said softly. I won't sign anything until I understand it. His jaw tightened. Without another word, he grabbed the folder and stormed upstairs. A few minutes later, I heard him on the phone. His office door wasn't fully closed. She's becoming a problem. A pause. No, she still doesn't know. Another pause. Handle it. Then came a sentence that froze my blood. If she won't cooperate, we'll find another way. I stepped away from the door before he could notice me. That night, sleep never came. The next morning, Daniel left before sunrise. As soon as I heard his car pull away, I did something I'd never done before. I walked into his office. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for the truth. His desk was spotless. Too spotless. Daniel hated clutter, but one drawer was locked. I searched until I found a small key hidden inside an old coffee mug. The drawer clicked open. Inside was a thick envelope. My name was written across the front. Emily Carter, my maiden name. Confused, I opened it. Inside were copies of my grandmother's will, property records, insurance papers, and something that made my hands shake. A life insurance policy. The beneficiary wasn't me, it was Daniel. $5 million. I stared at the document. When had this happened, I didn't remember signing any paperwork like this. Underneath the policy was another envelope. This one contained photographs, me leaving the grocery store, walking my dog, meeting friends for coffee. Even visiting my grandmother's grave. Someone had been following me. Each picture had dates written on the back. Why, who would do something like this? Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Daniel, running late today. Love you. I looked down at the photographs again, for the first time since we married. Those 3 words made me feel afraid. I quickly took pictures of every document with my phone and placed everything back exactly as I'd found it. Before locking the drawer, one final item caught my eye. A business card. It belonged to a private investigator. Written across the back in Daniel's handwriting were 4 chilling words. Watch her every move. I locked the drawer, returned the key, and hurried out of the office. Just as I reached the hallway, I heard the front door unlock. Daniel was home. He stepped inside, staring directly at me. I forgot my laptop, he said, then he smiled. What are you doing upstairs? For a split second, I thought he knew. I forced a calm smile. I was putting away the laundry. He studied my face longer than usual. Then he nodded. Good. He picked up his laptop and left again. Only after his card disappeared did I realize my hands were trembling, whatever Daniel was hiding. It was much bigger than money, and somehow, I had just stepped directly into the middle of it. The moment Daniel's car disappeared around the corner, I locked every door in the house. For the first time in 7 years, my home didn't feel like my home. It felt like a stage. Every smile, every hug, every I love you suddenly seemed rehearsed. I couldn't stop thinking about the photographs. Someone had documented my daily life for months. Why, what was Daniel planning? I needed answers, but I also needed to stay calm. If Daniel suspected I knew anything, whatever he was hiding would disappear overnight. So I did what I'd always done best. I stayed quiet. That evening, Daniel came home carrying takeout from my favorite restaurant. A few months ago, I would have thought it was a sweet surprise. Now I saw it differently. People who feel guilty often become unusually generous. During dinner, he kept watching me, not lovingly, carefully, almost as if he was waiting for me to say something. Instead, I smiled and asked about his day. He relaxed immediately. Have good news, he said. Investors are excited. That's wonderful. If everything goes well, we'll all be celebrating soon. I nodded. Inside, I wondered if he was celebrating a future that no longer included me. That night, after he fell asleep, I quietly picked up my phone and called James again. I found something, I whispered. What happened? I told him about the life insurance policy, the photographs, and the private investigator's business card. When I finished, James was silent. Finally, he spoke. Emily, this is much more serious than I thought. What do you mean? If someone is documenting your movements while trying to obtain your assets, you shouldn't assume this is only about money. A chill ran through me. So what should I do? You need a lawyer. And you also need copies of every financial document you can legally access. The next morning, I did exactly that, over the years. Daniel had trusted me to organize household paperwork. He never imagined I'd actually read it. Inside our filing cabinet were tax returns, mortgage documents, bank statements, and company correspondence. Most of it looked ordinary, until I noticed repeated transfers between Daniel's company and another business I'd never heard of. The amounts were enormous, hundreds of thousands of dollars every few weeks. The company's name appeared again and again, Silver Oak Consulting. Something about it felt wrong. I searched through more files until I found the incorporation papers. The owner wasn't Daniel. It was his sister, Chloe. I frowned. Chloe had never owned a business. She could barely keep a part-time job for more than 6 months. So how was she suddenly running a company that handled millions of dollars? I photographed every document. Just as I returned the files to the cabinet, I heard the front door open. Emily, Daniel's voice echoed through the house. I came home for lunch. I quickly closed the cabinet. In the kitchen, I called. He walked in carrying flowers again. This time they were white lilies, my favorite. He remembered, or perhaps someone reminded him. You seem distracted lately, he said. Just tired. You know you can tell me anything. Irony almost made me laugh. Instead, I smiled. I know. He reached for my hand. His grip felt tighter than usual. Promise me we'll always trust each other. Looked into his eyes. I promise. It wasn't a lie. I still believed in trust. I just no longer believed he deserved mine. Later that afternoon, I drove to visit my grandmother's old property. I hadn't been there in almost a year. The small farmhouse stood exactly as I remembered. the wooden porch, the old oak tree. The swing my grandfather built before he passed away, being there always made me feel safe. As I walked toward the back of the property, something caught my attention. Fresh tire tracks. Someone had been there recently. I followed them until they stopped near the old storage barn. The padlock had been replaced. I frowned. I still had the original key. When I tried it, it didn't fit. Someone had changed the lock. My heart began racing. Who would lock me out of my own property? Before I could think further, I heard voices inside the barn, 2 men. He'll have the papers soon. What if she refuses? She won't have a choice. I quickly stepped behind a large tree. A few moments later, the barn door opened. One of the men walked out. I recognized him immediately. He was Daniel's business partner, Victor. The second man remained inside. I couldn't see his face. Victor looked around before climbing into a black SUV as the vehicle drove away. I memorized the license plate. Then I waited another 15 minutes before approaching the barn. The new lock was solid. There was no way inside. As I turned to leave, I noticed something lying in the grass, a folded piece of paper. It looked as though someone had dropped it. I picked it up. It was part of a printed contract. Only one paragraph remained visible. Following the successful transfer of the Carter property, my surname, my grandmother's land, this wasn't a coincidence. This had been planned. For how long? Back in my car, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. Woman's voice whispered urgently, "If you want to stay alive." My blood froze. "Stop trusting your husband." The call ended. I stared at the phone, my heart pounding. Seconds later, another message arrived. It contained only one sentence: "They're watching you right now." I slowly lifted my eyes to the rearview mirror. Across the road, parked beneath a row of trees, was a black SUV, the same one Victor had driven away in just minutes earlier. Its engine was running, and someone inside was staring directly at me. The black SUV didn't move. It just sat there across the road, its engine humming softly. I could feel someone's eyes on me. My pulse hammered against my ribs, but I refused to panic. Panic was exactly what they wanted. Instead, I started my car, adjusted my rearview mirror, and drove away as if nothing had happened. The SUV followed, not too closely, just close enough to remind me it was there. At the first traffic light, I turned right. The SUV turned right. At the next intersection, I turned left. It turned left. There was no doubt anymore. Someone was following me. I reached for my phone and called James. "Behind me," I whispered. "Who?" "The black SUV." "Listen carefully," he said calmly. "Don't drive home." "What?" "If they're watching you, they already know where you live." "What do I do?" "Drive to the police station." Without another word, I changed direction. The moment I turned toward the police station, the SUV slowed down. By the time I pulled into the parking lot, it had disappeared. I sat in my car for several minutes, trying to steady my breathing. Then I walked inside. An officer listened patiently as I explained everything. The suspicious documents, the private investigator, the photographs, and the car that had followed me. He took notes and encouraged me to keep records of every incident. "There isn't enough evidence for criminal charges yet," he said. "But if this continues, contact us immediately." It wasn't the answer I wanted, but at least there was now an official record. That evening, I returned home. Daniel was already there. He looked unusually cheerful. "Been trying to call you," he said. My phone was on silent. He smiled and handed me a small velvet box. "Open it." Inside was a beautiful diamond bracelet. It was expensive, far more expensive than anything he had ever bought me before. "It's gorgeous," I said. "I thought you deserved something special." I looked at the bracelet. A week ago, I would have believed it was a gift of love. Now it felt like a distraction. The next morning, while Daniel was in the shower, his phone lit up on the nightstand. A message appeared on the screen. "Chloe, Mom says she's almost convinced." Just keep pretending. My heart stopped. Pretending. Before I could read anything else, the phone locked. I quietly put it back exactly where it had been. When Daniel came out of the bathroom, he smiled as though nothing had happened. Over breakfast, he casually asked, "Have you thought any more about signing the papers?" I stirred my coffee. "I'll let you know soon." His smile faded for just a second. It was enough. He was running out of patience. So was I. That afternoon, James arranged a meeting with an attorney named Sarah. She specialized in financial fraud and estate law. After reviewing the photographs I had taken of the documents, she leaned back in her chair. "This isn't just suspicious," she said. "It looks like someone has been preparing to transfer your property through deception." "They do that?" "Not if you're careful." She looked directly at me. "From this moment on, don't sign anything." "Won't." "One more thing." She slid a small digital recorder across the table. "If Daniel pressures you again, record the conversation." I slipped it into my purse. For the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. That weekend, Daniel's parents invited everyone to dinner. I almost didn't go. But Sarah had encouraged me to keep acting normal. So I smiled, dressed neatly, and joined the family. The evening began exactly as expected. Daniel's mother criticized my dress. Chloe rolled her eyes every time I spoke. His father ignored me completely. Then, halfway through dinner, Daniel cleared his throat. Have an announcement. Everyone looked at him. Investors have approved the expansion. Cheers erupted around the table. His mother clapped proudly. I knew my son would make us rich. Daniel reached into his briefcase. I just need Emily to sign one final document. He placed the papers in front of me. Everyone fell silent. Every pair of eyes was fixed on me. I slowly opened the folder. It was another property transfer, different format, same outcome. I looked at Daniel. You want me to sign this now? He smiled. It'll only take a minute. His mother chimed in. Embarrass the family. His father added, stop acting difficult. Even Chloe laughed. It's just paperwork. I glanced around the table. For 7 years, I had stayed quiet. I had apologized. I had smiled. I had swallowed every insult, not because I was weak, because I believed peace was worth protecting, but peace without respect isn't peace at all. I closed the folder. I'm not signing it. Room fell silent. Daniel forced a laugh. Emily? I said no. His smile disappeared completely. Can we discuss this privately? No. His mother slammed her hand on the table. After everything his family has done for you, I met her eyes calmly. No, she stood up. An ungrateful woman. I didn't raise my voice. I brought my own home into this marriage. Silence. I supported Daniel when his business had nothing. More silence. I cared for this family while all of you mocked me. No one spoke. And today, I gently pushed the documents back across the table. I'm choosing myself. Daniel's face turned red. You don't know what you're doing. I stood up. Oh, I said quietly. Know exactly what I'm doing. Without another word, I walked out of the dining room. Behind me, I heard shouting. Daniel called my name. His mother yelled. Chloe cursed. I kept walking for the first time in years. I didn't look back. As I reached my car, my phone vibrated. It was a message from Sarah. Call me immediately. We found something. I dialed her number before I even started the engine. Her voice was urgent. Emily, we've finished tracing the financial records. And the company receiving Daniel's money. Yes, doesn't actually belong to Chloe. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. Then who owns it? Sarah took a slow breath. The legal owner is someone you've known your entire life. My heart pounded. Who? There was a long pause, then she spoke the name. Your late father's business partner. I froze. The man I had called Uncle Robert since I was a little girl had been secretly working with my husband all along. I couldn't speak. Uncle Robert? I whispered. That's impossible. Sarah sighed. I wish it were. For nearly 30 years, Robert had been my father's closest friend. After my father died, he stayed in our lives. He attended birthdays, graduations, and eventually my wedding to Daniel. He hugged me after the ceremony and said, "Your father would be so proud." Now I wondered if every smile had been a lie. Long? I asked. Still putting the timeline together, Sarah replied. But based on the records, Robert has been quietly funding Daniel's company for years. When the business began to fail, they needed something valuable to cover their losses. My grandmother's land. Exactly. I closed my eyes. The land had never been the real prize. It was the key to keeping their entire scheme alive. The next morning, Sarah, James, and I met with investigators from the Financial Crimes Unit. I handed over everything I had collected, the photographs, the life insurance policy, the property transfer documents, the recordings, the bank records linking Daniel's company to Robert's shell company. One investigator looked through the files before saying quietly, "You've done exactly the right thing." The first time in weeks, I felt like someone believed me. They advised me not to confront Daniel. Instead, they asked me to let him believe I had finally given in. It was dangerous, but it was the only way to catch everyone involved. 3 days later, Daniel invited me to his office. He looked surprisingly relaxed. "I'm glad you've had time to think." "So am I replied. He slid the final property documents across the desk. "I knew you'd come around." I smiled gently. "Realized you've been right." His shoulders relaxed. Decided to sign. He reached for a pen with a grin. At that exact moment, the office door opened. Several investigators walked inside. Behind them came Sarah, James, and 2 uniformed police officers. Daniel's smile disappeared instantly. "What is this?" The lead investigator stepped forward. "We're here to execute a search warrant." Daniel stood so quickly that his chair crashed to the floor. There must be some mistake. There isn't. His phone was taken. His computer was seized. His office safe was opened. Inside were contracts, hidden financial records, fake invoices, and documents proving Robert's involvement. Then Robert himself walked through another office door. The look on his face told me everything. He hadn't expected to see me or the investigators. His confidence vanished. Within hours, investigators searched Robert's offices as well. The evidence uncovered years of fraud, forged documents, tax crimes, and attempts to illegally obtain inherited property. Daniel wasn't just desperate. He had become part of a criminal conspiracy. His parents and Chloe were questioned after investigators discovered they had knowingly helped pressure me into signing away my inheritance. Watching them realize the truth was strangely quiet. No dramatic speeches, no shouting, just silence. The same silence they had mistaken for weakness all those years. A month later, I filed for divorce. Daniel tried calling dozens of times. I never answered. He wrote letters. I didn't read them. He asked mutual friends to convince me to forgive him. They couldn't. One afternoon, my attorney handed me a sealed envelope. It came from Daniel. Inside was a handwritten letter. It never stopped loving you. I folded the paper and placed it back inside. Love doesn't manipulate. Love doesn't deceive. Love doesn't try to steal the only gift your grandmother ever left you. Whatever Daniel had felt, it wasn't love. 6 months later, I stood beneath the old oak tree on my grandmother's property. The afternoon breeze carried the scent of wildflowers. The farmhouse had been restored. Children from the local community now visited every weekend for gardening classes and outdoor activities, instead of selling the land. I had turned it into something my grandmother would have loved, a place that gave people hope. James stopped by that afternoon with coffee. "You look happy," he said. "I am. You know," he smiled. "The quiet version of you scared a lot of powerful people." I laughed. No, they scared themselves. Because they never bothered to know who I really was. They assumed kindness meant weakness, patience meant ignorance, silence meant surrender. They were wrong. A year later, I received a letter from one of the investigators. Daniel had accepted a plea agreement. Robert had also been convicted for his role in the fraud. The case was over. Justice had finally arrived. I walked outside with the letter in my hand and looked across the land my grandmother had loved so much. The sun was setting behind the oak trees. For the first time in years, there was no fear, no pretending, no loneliness, just peace, real peace, the kind that comes from knowing you never betrayed yourself. People often ask why I stayed quiet for so long. The answer is simple. Silence gave me time to see what everyone else missed. It taught me who people really were. And when the moment finally came to speak, I only needed one word. No. That one word saved my future, protected my grandmother's legacy, and reminded me of something I'll never forget. A quiet woman is not an easy woman to defeat. Sometimes. She's simply waiting for the truth to speak louder than everyone else.